Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining DC Villages today for our community conversation. And we're so happy to have Alexa Waugh here from Safe at Home to talk about fall prevention and recovery and general keeping yourself safe from those sort of little trips and falls that can happen. For those who aren't familiar, DC Villages is the DC Villages Consortium Collaborative is the group that sort of works together with the 13 villages across the district to help support efforts for people to age in community. We also are working to try and help grow awareness of villages, and if people are looking to form a village in a part of the city that doesn't currently have one, we are here to help those efforts. Our website is dcvillages.org, and there's contact information for all 13 villages on there, as well as for DCVC. I see a couple of people that I recognize here, but if you are already a member of a DC Village, we would love it if you could just please note that in the chat. And if you aren't, if you could just tell us from where in the city you're coming from, we would appreciate it. This message or this presentation is going to be recorded, and it's going to go up onto the DC Villages YouTube channel. And I'll put the link for that into the chat too. And if you have any questions or anything during the chat, please feel free to, or in the presentation, please feel free to drop them into the chat, and we will try to address all of them that we can in our time together. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Alexa, and thank everybody for being here.
Thanks, Carter. I appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. I recognize quite a few faces from our Safe at Home programming as well. So I highly recommend looking into the villages here in DC. There's a robust offering already. And like Carter said, you can always look into developing your own village if you don't have one in your neighborhood already. So with that, let me get our presentation going here. All right. Everybody seeing it okay? Great. All right, so I'm here today to talk about fall recovery, and we call that the skills to land safer and to rise stronger. So first of all, who are we? I am an occupational therapist with the Safe at Home program. Several people on this call are already familiar with the Safe at Home program, but just to give you the brief overview, the Safe at Home program is a program here in DC, fully funded by the DC Department of Aging and Community Living. The Safe at Home 1.0 program offers free home assessment with an occupational therapist, like myself, and we come out and take a look at your home and take a look at you and see if there's modifications that can be put in the home to be able to decrease your risk of falls in your house. It is a free program, and the income requirement is, I think, $99,000 for a single person. So it's pretty high. So if you are interested in that, you do need to call the Department of Aging to apply, and that's 202-724-5626. And we'll offer that number up again later on today. And then the Safe at Home 2.0 program was begun about 3 years ago. Mayor Bowser expanded Safe at Home program to include evidence-based balance classes or fall prevention classes, as well as medication and vision management as well. So we offer through Safe at Home with home care partners, we offer virtual classes that are evidence-based called Matter of Balance and Stay Active and Independent for Life. We'll hear more about that later on today. But those classes are offered virtually, and those are, again, to decrease risk of falls in the home. So what is fall recovery? We think of fall recovery as being just how to get up if we do fall, how we stand back up again. But it actually encompasses a whole lot more. It's about getting back to the level of functioning that we've had before a fall. And so that could be maybe needing physical rehabilitation. It might be addressing our fear of falling after we've had a fall, and coming up with strategies or ways to be able to prevent future falls. So fall recovery is a whole lot more than just the getting up from a fall, although that is very important. And when's the best time to start thinking about our risk of falls? Honestly, the best time is now. I've been thinking about it a lot as I've gotten more into this work, and going and practicing these things are things we should be doing on a daily basis. all the time. If we think about how often we get on and off the floor when we're really young, and then it kind of decreases as we get older. And so practicing these things and integrating it into your daily life is how you can handle these things without having to consciously think about it, but your body kind of takes over. So doing it as soon as possible is really important. So today we're going to talk about preparing for fall recovery, how to get up from a fall, reducing your risk of injury if you do fall, preventative exercises and programs that you might want to look into, and reducing everyday hazards. I do want to point out that this is an educational presentation today. Anything we talk about, you should talk about with your medical team who's more familiar with you. You wouldn't expect, for instance, to drive a car after just watching a video about it one time. To effectively address this kind of thing, you've got to practice it, dedicate time to looking at this. But this is a first step about learning it to be able to go forward with it. So do take this information into further learning. So we'll start off with preparing for fall recovery. This is called a file of life. It's usually a little red booklet that has some information in it. I'll show another picture in just a second. And this has all of your information that first responders can look at if you should have an emergency in the home or when you're out in the community. It has a list of your medications, your preferred doctors, hospitals, things like that. It looks sort of like this. And so it has your name, your address, your emergency contacts, things like that on there. Fill it out in pencil. They make a wallet-size version and a version that you can that has a magnet on it that you can put onto your fridge. So I highly recommend looking into getting one of these. If you don't have one, you can always just put it on a piece of paper as well. We hand these out as part of our Safe at Home programming. So if you're one of our clients, you would get one of these. Additionally, we'll talk about this at the end of the presentation, but we have Falls Prevention Awareness Week in September, and they will be offered there as well. If you don't have either one of those, we're going to provide the link to the page where you are able to look into these. I do not believe the DC fire departments carry it at this time, but it is something to look into. All right, the next thing is wellness checks, just having a daily check-in with a family member or a friend. It could just be a text message saying good morning or a smiley face or a heart, but having some sort of check-in, especially if you live by yourself, with other people, so that you're knowing that you're checking in with one another and looking out for one another just in case you should have a fall. This is something that you should consider as part of your planning process. Having a sturdy chair in each room, and we'll talk more about why this is important, but if you have a chair in each room and you should happen to sustain a fall, it might make it easier for you to get to it and not have to scoot or crawl so far if you have a strong chair, especially with arms in each room of your house or your apartment. This should be something you consider. And keeping a falls journal, especially if you have had a few falls. But thinking about this, if you've had a fall, writing down how the fall happened. After a fall happens, we have so many things going on in our brain and we tend to kind of modify exactly what happened. So if we're able to write down all the details that we can as soon as possible, then we're able to make sure we maintain that memory of the fall to be able to share with our medical team. It also helps identify patterns that could be causing falls. So if you're having multiple falls happening in your front hallway, for example, maybe that throw rug is something to look at. And it might not be something you notice right away, but if you've had multiple falls and you're able to look at that pattern, it might give you a little more information about what's going on. And this is actually a video of my grandmother, and she's actually on the call here today. But one of the great things we can do is in a supported environment is just practice getting on and off the floor. So my grandmother has a little setup in one of her rooms where she does practice yoga as well. And so getting on and off the floor is one of the things that we can do to practice how to work on having a good fall recovery plan, both if we do fall, but it also helps increase our strength to decrease our risk of falls overall. So just to go over that again, completing a file of life and putting it in a safe place. I keep mine by my front door, just in case I ever have a loss of consciousness or anything like that. All of my information's in one place. If EMTs have to come, they can see it. It's bright red. It says file of life. You can keep it on your fridge or in your purse or your wallet. Having a falls journal and reporting falls to your family, your medical team is really important because especially if you've hit your head, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but making sure you report falls if they've happened. Doing those wellness checks, having a sturdy chair in each room, practicing getting on and off the floor with support if needed, and doing preparatory exercises, which we'll talk about later on. So we'll get right into it. How to get up if you did fall and you're not injured. Today, we're just going to talk about being not injured because this presentation could be a weeks-long workshop, so we have to get right to the details. So this is how to get up from a fall if you're not injured. And I want to point out that I believe Jackie Britt, who's our lovely model here, is also on the call. So thank you, Jackie, as well. So the first step would be calling for help if somebody is around. If you live with somebody else, just calling out. That would be the very first step. If you do live by yourself, you might want to think about whether you want to call somebody right away or we'll continue on through here. But if somebody is around, call and see if somebody's around to help. Doing a body check. So you're going to want to look and check. I often recommend putting a little bit of pressure just in case you have had a fracture or anything like that. If you've fallen, you're likely to be in a little bit of shock. And so you want to put a little bit of pressure onto places to make sure that you're really slowing down, taking a couple deep breaths and assessing what's going on. If you have a bad injury and you get up too quick, you might make it a lot worse. And so doing a body check, checking the back of your head, around, go all the way from head to toe, and checking to make sure that you're okay before you try to get up is very, very important. The next thing would be looking around for a sturdy piece of furniture. So seeing where your closest furniture is that you could get up from is most likely going to be your easiest way. We'll talk a little bit about if furniture is not around in a minute. Rolling over to your side. And then from rolling over to your side, you typically are going to bring that arm that's underneath kind of to prop yourself up. And then roll over the rest of the way and come onto your knees if you're able to and crawl to the chair. I will review alternate ways if you're not able to get onto your knees this way because lots of people are not able to. Put both hands onto the chair and bring one of your legs up. And you're going to press through the arms and bring the other leg up. You can turn and sit in the chair. And this is really important. Call someone and let them know what happened and writing all the details of the fall down once you've gotten up into your chair. Do another assessment again. Make sure how you're feeling and see whether you need to go to the hospital, especially if you've hit your head, you really need to go to the hospital because we could have an injury in our head and not be aware of it at all, and it could have long-term effects with that. So those are some basic steps to get up from a fall. If you are able to get on your knees, if you have furniture around, if you're not injured. We're going to look at a couple of other ways here. And this is one of our other models, Vilma, showing us a way to scoot if you're not able to crawl on your knees. So she's still lifting one hip up at a time, scooting back, and shifting her weight back and forth, using her hands to help guide her as well. So this would be a good way to scoot back to a chair if you're not able to get up onto your hands and knees to be able to crawl. And here's another way. And again, she's not on her knees. She's scooting a lot with her upper body, but she's certainly using her lower body a little bit to help push her. And if you have a little bend in your knees, you could push even more through your legs there. So those are two other ways of being able to get to a chair if you're not able to get up onto your hands and knees and crawl. And here's a method. This could be used on a couch or all kinds of places, but a method of getting up onto the couch or chair if you're not able to get onto your hands and knees the way that Jackie did. So she's scooting herself around. It's still challenging. It's not the easiest thing by any means, but it's another way of being able to get up, and she's bending her knees much more minimally. So that's another method of getting up to a chair. This item is called a rescue up. It's RES, the letter Q, UP, Rescue Up. It is pricey. I think it is around $350, I think, something like that. But if you are somebody who is sustaining a lot of falls, or you know somebody who's sustaining a lot of falls, it might be an item that's worth looking into, though. And so we don't show it unfold in this video, but it folds all the way up and you can keep it stored against a wall. And then you can kind of pull it out against away from the wall and put it up to a chair or something like that. And it's kind of a built-in set of stairs that's available to you then to be able to scoot yourself up. So I'm going to show how Jackie here scoots her bottom up. And she's doing it on one hip here for this video. You also, of course, could do it on just your butt like she turned there to do. And then it folds back in. And you can get back into the chair. So this is a great option for being able to get up to a chair with little steps up. Another thing a lot of people do is if you are living in a home that has stairs, you're able to scoot over to the stairs. You can just use your stairs in this way too, and scoot your bottom up enough up on the stairs until you're able to get high enough where you're able to stand up from that level. So that is called the Rescue Up. Here, Vilma's going to show us a way of getting up from a fall using the wall. So she rolls over to her side again, comes up to her hands and knees, hands onto the wall, putting pressure through the wall, stepping up through that one leg, putting pressure through her hands until she comes to standing. And here she does bend her knees again with it, but she's putting her pressure back through her hands to kind of climb back up the wall. So she's putting the pressure through the wall to come to a stand. So of course we don't control where we fall, right? We don't know where we're going to be, what's going to happen. So we get a question a lot of what happens if I fall outside and I don't have any furniture to climb to or anything like that. Looking for a place where there's a wall, like what Vilma just showed, is useful and important. Jackie is going to show us how to stand just using your own body if you're able to come onto your hands and knees. I'll go ahead and show that video now. So first she comes back into that, we call it a quadruped position, so onto her hands and knees. Brings one leg up. And she's pushing off the ground and through her own leg to be able to stand up. So if you don't have anything around, this is a method you can use if you're able to get onto your knees to be able to stand up again. So one thing I'd like to point out here with this is that oftentimes we want to help somebody who's fallen, or if we're the person who's fallen, we just want to get off the ground as fast as possible. And sometimes it's not always necessarily the best thing to have somebody come and pick you up as quickly as possible, or for you to get up as quickly as possible. Taking that time to see if you're okay is really important, and taking a look at who is helping and what kind of way. The injury risks are high for the person who has fallen and for the person helping somebody up. If we're not taking our time, taking a look at what the best way is to get up, it might be possible that it actually is safer for you to get up on your own than to have somebody else try and hoist you up. Really got to slow things down, assess the situation, see if you feel like you're safe, look who's coming to help you as well, making sure you're answering those questions for yourself rather than just being hastily trying to get back up off the ground. So thinking about that. So, like I said, all these things are educational. I'm not saying go out there and go practice this now at home by yourself. Think about whether this is a right fit for you. If you have a supportive structure at home or somebody who's there to be able to help support you trying these things at home and you feel like you're able to, especially if you're able to get on and off the ground by yourself right now, you might want to think about practicing some of these things. However, I do want to point out that there is a falls clinic here in DC at the GW Outpatient Clinic. So this is the outpatient falls program. They have a whole team there that they are evaluating risk of falls, working on how to fall, how to get up safely from a fall, all of the components. It's very comprehensive. Their number is listed here for their outpatient clinic, 202-715-5655. I'd highly recommend looking into this kind of no matter what. These recommendations are made generally. Everybody's body is different. Everybody has different things going on. Having a one-on-one consultation is going to give you so much more information than just watching something about fall recovery on a video like this. This is really just a primer, a beginning, first step here. So doing this kind of one-on-one work with a physical and occupational therapist, perhaps even a speech therapist, is really important to decrease your risk of falls and promote the best way of getting back up from falls if they do occur, and how to decrease your risk of injury if you do fall. So highly recommend contacting them. You will need a prescription from your primary care physician, or if you're seeing a neurologist or something like that, you do need a prescription to go see them. But I would highly recommend, if you're in the area, looking into the outpatient falls program. And that's 202-715-5655. And just a reminder, too, to what we talked about at the beginning, it's never too early to start this kind of work. It's good for practicing these things before there's ever an issue that pops up ever. Then you're working really in that preventative realm and trying to decrease your risk initially. So let's talk a little bit about reducing your risk of injury if you do fall. These are complicated ideas that I'm going to talk about. And they're things you would never think about while you're falling if you've never practiced it before. So again, I'm not saying go practice this today or anything like that, but these are the beginnings of some research in this field about reducing your risk of injury if you do fall. There is a lack of research in this field of how you can decrease your risk of injury. It is happening though, and we're slowly getting more and more information. So all we're able to do right now is kind of piece that together to try and make our best recommendations. Some of it has been researched. A lot of it is piecing together from different fields, different research with different age groups and things like that, and piecing together our best case scenario. A lot of what, and I've let me reference Mike Grigsby from Fearless Falling. His website's down here at the bottom, fearlessfalling.com. He operates out of Central Ohio, and they have classes there. They have workshops where they practice falling. His background is in martial arts. I highly recommend checking out his website, even if you don't do those things yourself necessarily. It gives you a lot of information about it. And so we're going to go through a couple of the methods that he talks about today, and methods to decrease your risk of injury if you fall. So if you do fall, how can you make it less likely that you're going to hurt your head? How can you make it less likely that you're going to break your wrist? And going through those kinds of things. This is the kind of work that you have to practice all the time to actually have it happen, because if you fall and you've never practiced it before, it might not help that much. But if you're thinking about it and then perhaps practicing it like at the outpatient clinic, things like that, it might put you in a better situation if you do fall in the future. So with that being said, here we have falling backwards. So the first step is tucking your chin. You might not have time to get your hands up to your head, possibly. But if you do, tucking your chin, pulling your elbows in is going to help prevent a head injury. And that's the most important thing for us to prevent if we do fall. So if you're falling backwards, really just try and bend your knees and sit down. Our automatic reflex is to straighten all the way up and to bring our head back, which puts us at higher risk for actually injuring ourselves. So you've got to work on trying to bend down and to sit, and then try and protect that head, tuck that chin in as much as possible. And then rolling to absorb the fall. And so he's going to roll back. I'm going to show a video in just a second where he rolls back to absorb the fall. So he's not falling directly onto his hip or his tailbone. He's going to roll to absorb the fall. And so you can see that he goes to sit down and rolls to absorb the fall and protects his head. So like I said, this comes from martial arts training, and he did a lot of martial arts. You can tell when he falls that he has. But that's the kind of ideas that they're looking at to decrease your risk of head injury and to decrease your risk of fracture, especially at your hip. So falling forward is a little bit scarier in some ways. And these are the methods that seem like they're starting to get researched a little bit more, keeping your hands near your face, trying to slap the floor. So what we automatically do usually is kind of put our hand out like that, and then we see a lot of fractures right here in our wrists from doing that if we fall forwards. The idea is to try and bend your elbows and distribute all of the fall through your forearms like this and slapping the floor. And then again, tucking your neck up and trying to look up so you don't slam your face into the floor. And so I'm going to show a video of that too. So here he trips, and you can see he's trying to look up rather than down with the falling forward. So trying to extend his neck if he's falling forward to decrease the risk of hitting his face. And then falling sideways. The biggest thing that we're seeing about falling sideways is try not to fall sideways. Try and get yourself turned around in the fall and try and fall forward or backward. If you fall right onto your side, you have a lot higher risk of breaking your hip, which can have huge impact. We know that one person over the age of 65 falls every second in the United States, or actually in the world right now. I think it's a world choice there. So we know it's very common for us to have falls, and there's so much we can do to decrease the risk of it. And so with falling sideways, you can see the folks, these are people in one of the classes there in Ohio, and they start off kind of sideways and then turn towards their back. And so, like I said, this isn't something that you're going to be able to think through if you're having a fall necessarily. It might require some practice. But trying to get turned around one way or the other is going to decrease your risk of a hip fracture. All right, so what can we do? What can we do at home? Where can we start off with this? And so preventative exercises and practice drills can be really useful. So here's Mike again, and he's talking about how to fall or how to practice. His method is called slapping the cheese. So he uses a little wedge mat here against the wall to practice falling forward. Probably don't have a wedge mat at home. It's not going to be exactly the same thing, but if you go up to a wall, you can practice kind of falling forward towards the wall, kind of close to it. And practice, rather than trying to land like that, practice trying to go all the way through your arms, slapping the wall and trying to look up at the same time. And that's a method that you could practice at home now. And like I said, it's not going to necessarily save anything when you're falling, but your brain can start to internalize some of it. And maybe you'll be able to take some of that to heart when you do fall, or if you do fall, and decrease that risk of injury with that. And if you are able to get on and off the ground, just practicing rolling up and back like this might be a good preparation for falling backwards. And so this is coming to a sitting position and just rolling back and forth. This is Jamal Smith. He's a Howard student that was working with us this semester. And here he's doing something called a hip bridge. This you could even do in your bed. And this kind of this kind of exercise could be really useful to work on scooting especially. So how to scoot back if you have fallen. So it's just sitting down, put your feet up underneath of your knees and lift your butt up off the ground. This is also working a little bit of your core, and there is a decent amount of research about core exercises being really helpful for getting on and off the ground and for fall risk recovery. And decreasing your risk of falling in the first place. If you have a really strong core, it might help you be able to recover if you have a little slip or a trip. So working on that core exercises are really important. Just working on different kinds of squats is really useful. Here, Jamal does not have a chair behind him, but if you were practicing this, you might want to have a chair behind you. You also could have the wall behind you. So this is working on the fronts of his legs, on his quads, and working on his butt too. And those two things are going to help you a lot to stand up, period, from a chair or anything, but especially for getting up off of the ground. And here's my grandmother again, who is on the call. Thank you, Grandma Nancy. And so here she's showing her way of sitting up. And she has worked a lot on her core strength. And so if you can't sit up that way, you can always roll on your side to get up. And she's coming up onto her knees and standing up. So working on that, getting up off the ground is one of the most important things you can do, and doing that on a really regular basis and practicing that is really, really important. She did say I could share. She had a little bit of a setback, and I think this is something for us to talk about in general. She had a little bit of a setback last winter and had a back injury, and she wasn't able to do this. And then through daily work, she was able to get back to being able to get up again. And so I think it speaks to us having setbacks, and we just have to get back into it again and keep going. And that's what, and she's up and doing it again, no problem now. All right. And I'm going to speak a little bit about some of the classes that we offer with Safe at Home. And these are some of the exercises that are offered in the SAIL program. So maybe you're not up for being able to do a whole lot out in the community. We offer our classes virtually, and we do all seated exercises. And I think I saw Keith on the call. So he's up here in the left top corner. And he's doing an exercise that we say is kind of like stepping out of the bathtub. And this kind of movement is really useful for decreasing your risk of falling overall because you're increasing that hip mobility. And we're going to see a little bit of testimonial from them in a minute about the benefits of these exercises. But even just doing some of these movements and sitting can make a huge difference in your risk of falls overall. So he's doing that. And we have Miss Fanny down here in the bottom corner. And she's lifting up onto her toes, lifting her heels up, and then the opposite of coming back onto her heels and lifting her toes up in the air. And doing that is going to decrease your risk of tripping on things because your ankle mobility is going to be increased. And these are exercises we do in our SAIL class. Miss Maria's up here in our top left corner, and she's just lifting and lowering her legs, marching in place. And this is really beneficial to make sure that we're keeping our hip flexors strong, to be able to lift our leg up. So that's what helps us lift our leg up. And this carries over to when we're walking then, and increasing the chance that we're keeping our feet up high enough to not trip over things that might be carpets or things like that on the ground. It also helps strengthen so that if you do trip up on something, you're able to kind of get your leg out there and catch yourself in time. And then we have Miss Rosetta down here in the corner as well, in the bottom. And one of the things that's just getting researched more now is about how upper body mobility and strength can impact your risk of actually falling if you do trip. Because if you think about when you trip on something, typically your upper body kind of moves around to try and get yourself stabilized so you don't fall. And so there is some beginning research happening now with upper body strengthening and mobility to decrease your risk of falling if you do trip or slip on something. So it's really important to make sure you're not neglecting your upper body when we're talking about doing exercises to decrease your risk of falling. So evidence-based classes. With Safe at Home 2.0, we offer Matter of Balance. That's more of a cognitive restructuring class is what it's called. So that class has 12 members in it. It is evidence-based since the 90s, so it's been studied since the 90s. It's to decrease fear of falling and increase activity level. We offer it virtually. It's also offered through the wellness centers, and I believe through some of the rec centers in DC as well. The coaches are trained, but it's all about conversation amongst the other folks in the class and sharing experiences and ways to decrease fear of falling. That fear of falling is a very high predictor of fall. So if you have a fear of falling, you're more likely to fall because you're not thinking through things logically, you're decreasing your activity levels, things like that. So Matter of Balance is a great class to start conversing about these kinds of things and to think about that and maybe increased confidence about things as well. Stay Active and Independent for Life is more exercise-based. It runs for 3 months, so it is a commitment. For it to be evidence-based, it's been studied for a long time as well. You have to do it at least twice a week. It involves aerobics, strengthening and balance, and stretching. The class is about an hour long, and we do offer this through Safe at Home 2.0 as well virtually. And this class is to increase activity level and to increase strength and balance and aerobic activity. We don't talk a ton about aerobic activity, but this is a 15-ish minute segment in SAIL. It's dedicated to aerobics, and we're going to hear some of our participants talk a little bit about what an impact that made for them in a minute. And Tai Chi for arthritis. So Tai Chi as a whole hasn't necessarily been evidence-based, but there is a specific one called Tai Chi for arthritis that has been studied to decrease risk of falling. We haven't implemented it yet, but we're thinking about it potentially for the future. And so here's our number down here to be able to register for Safe at Home classes. And that's for DC residents, anybody over the age of 60. And that's 202 559 9856. 202 559 9856. And you can call to register for the classes. We have one more Matter of Balance class in June, and then we'll be starting everything back up in October again after the new fiscal year for DC. So this is a Matter of Balance class that we had, so you can kind of see what it's like. So we have, everybody gets on Zoom, and I will say you really get to know each other still in the class. So even though it's on Zoom, we get very close to each other when we have the classes. So we have two of our coaches here in the bottom corner there. Crystal and Judith are the coaches. They took the class and then became coaches themselves, along with the participants of the class, of this particular class. And then we have a couple of testimonials.
And my parents feel a whole lot, the weight fits a whole lot better. My sugar, the blood sugar is down a lot. And I went to a couple of Mother's Day dances, and I danced the whole time. I mean, I couldn't do that before.
So that's Maria talking about that she actually ended up losing weight from taking the SAIL class. Her blood sugar went down, and then her activity tolerance has increased a lot. So she said that she was able to go to a Mother's Day dance and be able to dance the whole time. She also has spoken about being able to go take her dog around her whole neighborhood and be able to walk now, step up on curbs where she wasn't able to, and really just get out in the community in a way that she was not doing before the classes. And here's Keith.
Helped me, first of all, with my confidence. Because last year I was not able to get out of my bed. But this year, taking these exercise classes helped me with my balance, my confidence, and I'm able to stand up and cook. Oh my God, that's just a feat in itself. As far as getting out, I don't use my walker anymore. I use my cane.
And so Keith saw a tremendous difference after taking the classes of being able to stand for longer. Like you said, cooking. I know he cooks a lot for his friends, and that was really important to him. And through the classes of his, and these are all seated exercises, but it's increased his balance, his confidence, his strength. He also spoke about being able to travel. He's from New York, and be able to travel back to New York on the train by himself, which he wasn't really able to do before. So these classes can make a tremendous difference. I'm just going to share two more testimonials because this exercise and activity can make such a huge difference. And it doesn't have to be such a big thing all the time. So here's Rosetta.
It's not that you've done a couple things for maybe 2 or 3 weeks and you're ready to stop. No, you want to continue on with the program. And this is the beauty part. They just don't just give you something to do and forget you. They check up with you. And every program that we have, every the 2 days, there's always something there's a feedback if you have something to say. They give you that time to voice whatever you need them to know, or what you would like, or whatever. And that's the beauty part of it. So you have someone that cares, not just giving you something to do and just leave you flat. You have a voice.
So Rosetta was sharing how she felt like there was follow-up through it. So through our program, and we really try and give a next step. So trying to do the Matter of Balance class, then the Stay Active and Independent for Life. And Stay Active and Independent for Life, you can continue to join those classes as we offer them throughout time. Stay Active and Independent for Life is also offered through the wellness centers and the rec center, starting to be in the rec centers as well here in DC. So I'd look into that.
10 plus, really. And I'm not just saying that because it has overall did a great thing to my life. Even my kids notice how I've changed. Mom, what did you do different? Even my physical therapist. She said, is this the real Fannie Hayes? I said, yes. Sales did it, and I'm enjoying it.
So that's Fanny, and here in the class, and you can hear her say that it made such a difference in her physicality and how she's moving around, and in her lifestyle. She also is talking about being able to get to clean her house more and felt like she was like more able to do those kinds of things around the house and get out to go see her neighbors and socialize more as well. I just want to share those stories because I think it's really important for us to think that these are achievable things that we can do. And through the virtual classes, you can do it from the comfort of your own home. However, they are offered in these other places in DC as well and can make a huge impact on your risk of falls through that cognitive restructuring and then through also the physical component too. All right, so let's talk about things that we might have talked a little bit more about on a regular basis. So reducing risks and hazards. So being aware of your risk, and we're going to delve into each of these topics, but I'll just go over them quickly here at the beginning. Being aware of your risk, stay active and find activities that keep you social, practicing fall recovery and doing strength and balance exercises. Your shoes are really important. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. One of the things we hear the most from our participants in the classes are slowing down and watching what's around you. We rush to get things done all the time in our society. We're always rushing. And that slowing down can really decrease your risk and make you more aware of what's around you. And that's really important. Getting environmental modifications, and we'll delve into this a little bit more, like handrails and grab bars. Really great if you can get an assessment by an occupational therapist, and I'll go into that a little bit more in a second. And getting your medications and your vision checked regularly. And we'll talk about a little bit more about vision and medication, but these are two things that you really have to stay on top of that can really increase or decrease your risk of falls depending on how aware you are of things that you might be either taking for medication or how your vision might be changing and you're not aware of. This is from the CDC. They have a whole program called the STEADI program. It's STEADI. And I believe Carter is going to drop some things in the chat here later on, some of these resources for you all too, so you can look into it a little bit more. So this is called the CDC STEADI resource. And this is a checklist. So looking at your risk of falling. So it's a yes or no checklist. We do it with everybody in our program for the classes program for 2.0. And it's looking at your risk. So if you've fallen in the past year, because if you have fallen once, you have a higher likelihood of falling. If you've been advised to use a cane or a walker to get around safely, how steady you feel when you're walking, if you hold on to furniture when you're walking around, if you're worried about falling, if you need to push with your hands to stand up from a chair, if you have trouble stepping up onto a curb, if you have to rush to the toilet. That is because if you have to get there quickly, you can be more likely to trip on something and be maybe going too fast and increase your risk of falls. If you've lost some feeling in your feet, if you take medication that makes you lightheaded or more tired, or medicine, some antidepressants can increase your risk of falls. And that doesn't mean not to take it. It just means to talk about it with your doctor or improve your mood. And then often feeling sad or depressed. And sometimes those symptoms of depression, because you might not be paying attention to as many things, you might not be as active as otherwise, those are things that can increase your risk of falls. So if you add up your number of points and you score 4 or more, you may be at increased risk of falls, and you should definitely be following up with your physician about that or your medical team about that. So you can take this online if you want to at the link yourself, and I would highly recommend taking it and sharing it with other people. This isn't just for you. We're all part of a community, and getting this information out to people is really important. So if you're able to share it with folks, that would be great. This is also information about activity levels. And so this is called the Move Your Way initiative, and it's through health.gov. And these are talking about, especially as we get older, the things that we need to make sure we're doing in our activity protocol to decrease our risk of injury and just to be staying healthy. So getting your heart beating faster, so aerobic activity. And they're recommending at least 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity aerobic activity. Building your muscle strength, so doing strength training at least twice a week. And working on your balance. So these are things we're working on with SAIL. You can certainly do it other ways, but it's something to keep in mind. So this is again from the CDC with the STEADI protocol. And these are specifics about shoes that they speak of that we know decreases your risk of falls. So wearing flip-flops, that kind of slippers with an open back, those are the things that can increase your fall risk. And I think a lot of us know that and do it anyway, but it might be something to think about a little bit more. So looking to make sure you have a closed heel in the back. You might want to have a little bit of a flatter shoe. Having it go all the way around your foot is really important, and having good traction on the bottom is important. A lot of people keep like an inside pair of tennis shoes in their house, so you might want to consider that you don't wear out on the street necessarily if you don't want to have outside shoes inside. But having a good pair of shoes that you wear around your house. A couple of other things that are in this handout also are being aware if you have increased foot pain, making sure you have really good mobility in your ankle, because that's what gives us the ability to lift our foot up like this and to recover from a fall if we have a fall. Reduce calf muscle strength. So we talked a little bit about that when Fanny was showing coming up onto her toes and onto her heels. Reduced sensation can happen from neuropathy, and that's something to keep in mind because it does increase your risk of falls. And if you have a bunion or other things going on with your toes, that can increase your risk of falls as well. I'm going to talk very quickly about vision. We know now more that a lot of us wear bifocals or progressive lenses, which are great and they're very useful in a lot of places. They also can increase our risk of injury, and that is because of the way that they look when we're looking at it. If we're wearing it out in the community, say go for a walk with that, it makes it a lot less clear what is right in front of you, what's right below you, within that like kind of 3 to 5 foot range in front of you. And so typically the recommendation now is if you're going out for like a walk or something like that, to wear your regular single vision lenses rather than wearing your progressive or bifocal lenses. I'm not going to delve too much into this, but I would highly recommend talking to your eye doctor about it to make sure that you're wearing the right glasses for the right activity. That doesn't mean it will be easy all the time because you might have to carry a second set of glasses around with you, but there's been a lot of studies about this, about wearing those single vision lenses out in the community, decreasing your risk of falls versus wearing the progressive or even bifocal lenses. And medications that are linked to falls. Again, I'm not going to delve into it too much because it's very personalized, but there are a number of medications that can increase your risk of falls for a number of reasons. And so talking to your doctor or your pharmacist about what medications you're on is really important. Typically, they say if you're on more than 4 medications, you are at increased risk of falls with that. So you're going to want to talk to your doctor about that to see what your medications are and make sure you're looking at all the side effects or interactions that they might have with one another and the impact it could have on your risk. And environmental modifications. So this is what our Safe at Home 1.0 program does. We do all of the environmental modifications for free here in DC. To apply for our program, you have to call the Department of Aging. It's 202-724-5626. But we provide things like iron handrails at the front steps, internal handrails on inside stairs. We do bathroom modifications. They are specialized to the person, so you're not going to get the same thing as your neighbor got because you're a different person and your house looks different. So that's the important part of having an occupational therapist look at it. We as occupational therapists are more familiar with any medical diagnoses that you might be having going on. We also really look at how the person is living in their environment and trying to do whatever task they're trying to do. So we're going to take a look at how you are in your bathroom and make recommendations based off of those specific factors. And so even if you don't come through our program, I would highly recommend having an occupational therapist come and assess your home with you, because they're going to have insight into how things that you might be dealing with might impact the way you use your space. And then they can work in collaboration with the contractor to make sure we're getting everything installed correctly. But these are some examples of what we do through Safe at Home that might be useful. And then I wanted to let everybody know about a couple other things that are coming up. There will be a series with GW Hospital focusing again on fall recovery. As I said at the beginning of this presentation, this isn't a one-time thing. You should go over it over and over again. So this is going to be a 3-part series. A lot of the information will be similar, but some of it will be different. We also get the privilege of being able to talk with 3 of the doctors from GW Hospital, their injury prevention coordinator, and 2 of the therapists from that GW clinic I was telling you about. Highly recommend coming to these. They're all virtual, June the 13th, July the 11th, and August 22nd. If you need to get the link sent to your email or texted to you, please call Jose with us at 202-559-9856. Again, that's June the 13th, July 11th, and August 22nd, all on Zoom. You get to hear from all of these local experts about this and really start to build your understanding of how to decrease your risk of injury, how to decrease your risk of falling overall, and how to build a good fall recovery program for yourself. And Falls Prevention Awareness Week, it's in September, so we got a while still till we get there, but please mark your calendar. This year we are going to have these 4 universities. We're going to have a day of screening and activities. It's all to decrease risk of falls and increase knowledge about falls. The first date will be September 22nd at Trinity, Washington. Tuesday, September 23rd will be at George Washington. Wednesday, September 24th will be at UDC, the University of the District of Columbia. And Friday will be at Howard. We'll have more information coming out in the upcoming months about this, but it'll be a very large event where you can get lots of free screenings, activities, learn more, and then get more information to be able to talk to your medical team about your own personal risk and how you can decrease your risk of falling. So keep your calendar marked for that. And I think Carter put into the resources, into the chat, the resources that I've referenced here. So we have a lot of information there that you can look into to learn a little bit more. And again, we have those phone numbers listed if you need that. And I think if we have some questions, I haven't looked at the chat yet. Let's see here.
There was one question about how you can get an occupational therapist assessment of your home.
Sure. So if you're a DC resident, I would look at just applying for the Safe at Home program if you think you're eligible. That's for anybody who's 18 to 59 with a disability, or anybody who's over the age of 60 with an income. I think for a single person, it's 90, like just a little under 100,000. And so then you would call the Department of Aging, 202-724-5626. If you're not eligible for that program, you can email me if you want to, and I'd be happy to get you some more resources. There is a website called homemods.org that you can look up, and that's HOMEMODS.org, that you can look up to see, to find a therapist who has been trained in home modifications, because it is an additional certification to be trained in home modifications, and you can get a little bit more information there to look for somebody. But feel free to email me if you have specific questions, and I can see how I can help you out as well. Carter, if you don't mind putting it into the chat if it's not there already, it's EWAUGH@homecarepartners.org. And I'd be happy to try and get you whatever resources I'm able to.
I also saw, I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, but a note that the time between falling and the opportunity to do what's suggested is very brief.
It is. It's extremely brief. And so that's why it's so important that it doesn't end today. It doesn't end with watching this video. It really has to be something you're thinking about frequently, reviewing this information. And then if you're able to, I highly recommend looking into the Falls Clinic there so you can practice some of these things. When we've trained our bodies to do certain things, like riding a bike, you don't have to think about it, right? We learn how to be able to do certain activities with time. Our body knows it without our brain thinking about it. And that's the goal with this, is that kind of thing. And that's where if we can practice these types of things ahead of time, then we decrease our injury. But yeah, ultimately you want it to be an instantaneous thing that happens, that you're not thinking about it at all. I'll share, a family member of mine had a fall not too long ago on some stairs. She's a dancer, though. She's been a dancer her whole life. And when she and I were talking about that, she said that she instantly kind of was able to protect her body because she had practiced this for her whole life. And so she didn't think about it at that moment. Her body knew what to do to protect her. And she did have some minor injuries. But overall, she protected herself from some major injuries because she had been practicing that kind of thing her whole life. Any other questions?
Someone just asked if the links in the chat will be available after the event ends. What I would say to do is, if you have the chat window open, go to the 3 little buttons or dots for more, and you'll have an opportunity to save the chat. And that'll get all those links there together in a text file for you. I will also aim to include them in the information with the version of this that gets posted to our YouTube channel. So it'll be available through dcvillages.org. There's one more note that practicing falls can also be dangerous.
Indeed, I saw things, Ruth. It can be, and that's why I think that really working one-on-one with a physical or occupational therapist in a protected setting is your best way of practicing these kinds of things. I would never recommend that you go out and go try and fall on the floor the way that, that Mike Grigsby did in that video. We're looking at trying to make incremental steps that could decrease your overall risk. And like I said multiple times, working one-on-one with a therapist is going to be your best way of doing that, because you can talk about your personal medical history. Maybe you've had a knee or a hip replacement or have a frozen shoulder, whatever the situation is. They're going to be able to accommodate for that and give you recommendations that are appropriate for you. And so that kind of supported environment is where we want this kind of thing to happen, not just having people go out and go practice this in their living room today after we hang up. So really recommending a supported environment to practice these sorts of things, but it's never too early to start looking at that kind of thing, especially if you're starting to notice changes in your balance or your sensation or your strength. These are the times to get out there now and prevent your risk earlier.
Does anybody else have any more questions? So we are coming up to noon, but if you want to unmute and ask your question directly or put it in the chat, happy to try and answer it. Folks are saying thank you and very much appreciated, Alexa. And I know that on behalf of DC Villages and the villages in DC, we're very happy that you're able to help get people aware of these programs and that you're able to share with us. And definitely recommend everybody pay attention to those links that are in there. Reach out to Safe at Home if there's something that one of these classes or the in-home services might be helpful to you. And watch out for Fall Prevention Awareness Week. We will be highlighting that on the dcvillages.org website, and the individual villages across the district will also, I'm sure, be letting people know about the ones that are closest to you. And that is the week of September 22nd. So, we look forward to seeing you out at those events, and don't trip.
Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you. And we will get this posted up in the next couple of days to our YouTube channel. So if you want to share it with a friend or something, it'll be accessible there. So thank you again, Alexa.
Thank you, Carter. Thanks to the villages.
Thank you, everybody who joined us.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for your class. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Rebecca.
Yes.
I appreciate all that you. It's very good information.
Thanks,
I'm gonna
Ms.
pass
Tate.
it on, and I'm gonna pass it on to my physical therapist. She wants to know more to share with other seniors that comes there.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing your experience in the presentation today, too.
Oh, thank you.